How's it been going, Craig?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Andrew.
Since the last time we spoke, well, the hearings at the Environment Court have finished.
Yes.
Yeah. And how's that gone for you?
It was an interesting experience. I think the EPA did a good job. It was a good opening and a good closing. Quite a long, slow process. I found it to be interesting because it's not always about what you think it's about. And me, I'm used to industrial process, running a business, making things happen, employing people, making a dollar. This is a totally different experience for me. So, yeah. The hearing was politically charged, and I understood that. Although I don't see it as being a political issue, it is a political issue. For me, this is just about doing the right thing by the environment. I'm 55 years old, grew up with landfills in my whole life and just understand that that's not a path forward. So for me, it's quite a simple solution that I am struggling to understand why it's a political issue and why we have such activism around it. And obviously, being a businessman, I understand that when we focused our whole waste lobby system around reuse, recycle, and then the levies we used to then fund both councils, district and regional, and wastemen's applications, it was at that point that I understood why it was such a big issue.
Money, invested interest?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that the nation is invested in landfilling. The whole system is set up to put rubbish in the ground and bury it.
Correct.
And you're an interloper.
I'm not quite sure what interloper means.
Well, if Paewira is built and goes ahead, it's going to completely transform the way that we deal with waste. And a lot of people and a lot of councils, they've got everything invested in landfill, and it's going to hurt people.
It's not really going to hurt people. It's just going to take it in a different direction. Zero waste as an idea is great. I still believe in a lot of the philosophies around reuse and recycle, but it's obviously not working. And if you don't understand it, then you're just not being honest.
And you can have all the zero waste strategies in the world, but unless we have a supply chain that produces 100% recyclable materials, it's not going to happen, is it?
No. I know that I do a lot of recycling for cardboard, paper, plastics, e-waste, metals, with the exception of probably precious metals. That's what I've done my whole life. And when you sort of work in that space all the time, and then you're moving over into waste, to me it's really, really simple. This is about money. And we've built these big companies, and these companies aren't doing anything wrong. They're doing the right thing. They're paying people. They've built up service, and they're servicing councils. And I work with a lot of these companies, and there is nothing that they are doing wrong. But the focus that we're putting on them, where they're only able to make money by landfilling, and then we're dragging all of that sort of cost back out of them to try and make them recycle, I believe is the problem. And if we really want to get to zero waste, and I'm not 100% sure, but last time I was in Europe and I was travelling through Germany and Italy and things like that, and going around all these different plants, not just waste energy plants, but looking at different equipment providers, industrial space. And every time you see an industrial space, you see a waste treatment space right there. Where's that power coming from? Oh, over here. Interesting. How they're managing their water systems, how they're managing their roads. To me, we're just so far behind. I'm in the metals recycling business, very close to waste. We haven't bridged that gap yet where we're moving across sole service providing to industry, right across waste and recycling. We haven't made that leap yet, but we're getting there. There was a guy that was running TPI, Mr. Terry Peabody out of Australia, about 10, 15 years ago, and he was close. He bought waste management, he was into metals, he was a shareholder in one of the companies I ran, and he was starting to build that circular economy, right? You got companies like Visi doing great things. EnviroWaste, great things. EnviroWaste owner, CKI, owns two of the largest waste to energy stations in the world. One in Holland, the other one in China. But their investment in EnviroWaste is about landfilling. Do they know about waste to energy? Absolutely they know about waste to energy. Do they know it's better? Of course, but this is about making money. I think EnviroWaste is a fantastic company, waste management as well, Green Gorilla, all good operators, but this comes down to our rules, our desires, our councils, and our people that we're voting for. But we're also seeing now we're separating our water, right? We've got problems in our water. Why do we have problems in our water? Why do we have problems? We know why we have problems in our water. We've got these large companies that are working beside our water, and I understand, going through that process, I understand that any companies that have whole planning divisions that work with councils, former councillors, former mayors, political people, working for any company that has more planners than a council, right? In my view, we need to keep an eye on. We need to keep an eye on them. Just GCS alone, we had 23 support contractors. I mean, the cost of that project, this isn't a revenue project, this is a cost project, and which is, been quite damaging. And for me and my family, but we believe in the environment. We believe this is the right thing to do, and it's been a little bit hard to understand why people don't understand that this is going to be better.
You started all this because your metal recycling business produces a lot of waste material that can't be recycled.
Correct.
So you hated seeing it going to landfill, and you were looking for another solution, and you came across waste to energy, which is not a big mystery. I mean, it's a very standard thing all over the world.
3,500 plants around the world.
And it's very safe, it's a well-developed, it's a mature industry, and you saw this and you thought, well, here's my solution. This is what I can do to improve our environmental footprint in New Zealand.
What I didn't understand at that time, and even last time we spoke, was why we don't already have it. One of the key things for me, and one of the first conversations I had was, is this legal? Is these emissions legal? How do they ensure that you're doing the right thing? Because the first plant I went to was quite average. It was it was a plant in Middle Germany, small plant, doing 3 megawatts, really small, but also providing steam, parked right next to a tyre factory. And the small town, 10,000 people, about the size of Te Awamutu, and it was right in the middle of the town. And this was the transfer station, and it was the first one I ever went to. And it was pretty much automated. There was no treatment around the waste. It just everything went in there. Everything went in there. And I was shocked because one thing I was shocked about was that these deliveries were just happening over and over again. Same rubbish trucks pulling up, high-speed door, tipping in, door come down. I couldn't smell anything. Couldn't smell anything. It was like right there. And I was like, why can't I smell anything? Negative pressure. I didn't understand what that meant then. Negative pressure. Negative pressure means that the pressure inside the furnace is different to the outside. It sucks all the oxygen in one direction.
They're designed so that they can be in a populated area and nobody knows that they're there.
Well, I think noise. There's noise, but I don't think it's abnormal noise. It's noise with things on the road. I mean, the trucks go past every day, right? Rubbish trucks. They're in the neighbourhoods. But then they go inside a building and then they empty and they come back out of the building. What you don't see is, if we look at our transfer stations here in New Zealand, we've built these beautiful transfer stations and they're concrete swimming pools. We've talked about this before. And we think this is great. We throw it in and then they bring a loader along and pushes it into a hole and then it goes into a hole. And we think, great. But the reality is, it's going in a bin. Their bin then gets pulled onto a trailer. That trailer goes 100 kilometres. If it's from New Plymouth, it goes 300 kilometres. It's either going to Palmy or, Auckland region, Pukekong, Redvale, any of them. But we're moving waste, including all Waipa's waste, out of the region. That's NIMBY behaviour. That's not in my backyard behaviour. I think the last one in the King Country is closed. The ones in New Plymouth are closed. And we need to understand that by sending that in trucks to monolithic landfills, you may think that you're living the right way, but ultimately, those landfills are by our rivers, and no one really knows what happens under the ground. And all it takes is a small earthquake, crack in that membrane, and all of a sudden, and we won't see it. We're going to see the issue in the waterways later on. And it's not the guys' faults that are running these places. I want to make that clear. It's not their fault. But in Europe, you have to treat something twice before it goes to a landfill. The levy is $200 a tonne, not 50. If you want to create room for recycling, you need to be able to promote value. And the only way to promote value or innovation is to increase the levy. They've been talking to me about, you're anti-levy, you want to do things cheap. Now, for me to do the ASR or the flock from a metal shredding plant, an ASR can be anything. It can be these tables, it can be these chairs, it can be a car, it can be whiteware, it could be small appliances. Right? This is all of the goods that we're talking about, flowing around the world every day without permits. This is the ASR that they say is toxic, cancer-causing, hazardous. They throw these words around like they're softball bats. They're trying to scare people. But the reality of it is that this stuff needs to be dealt with. It needs to be treated. And it's a high-value fuel. Anything that's plastic it's basically created out of oil, the oil-making process. All right? I really struggle with some of the behaviour around this, to be honest with you. I don't think that waste-to-energy plants are the 100% treatment of waste, but it is definitely a waste treatment tool, in my view, to create energy.
But it's also a recycling tool, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's very difficult to recycle anything that's mixed, anything post-consumer. The cost to do that isn't achievable. It's not achievable. The machinery can do so much, and other than that, it's not going to be able to achieve the cost around sorting plastics, for instance. I think there's 8 different types of plastics. They all have a value if they're independent, uniform, and then you can screen them down by colour. Yeah, then they have a value, but the way to achieve that is just not possible. A, you got to be able to train people. B, no one wants to be touching that stuff. C, it's already mixed, and it's now got bacteria on it. So we want people to go through sorting. That's just not possible. The problem with zero waste is it's being captured by paid people whose job is to promote it, and they're paid by the levy. So their job is to create content to push their position. Me, I kind of believe in that stuff too, right? But having worked in the waste industry for a long time, I understand more that what they see isn't what they get. And I understand what's possible in the recycling world and what's practical and what's really happening. So I don't agree with them that, in fact, I strongly disagree with them that we have the current path forward. I don't think that we should have too many waste-to-energy plants, because then We're just burning because we need to burn, right? But right now, we have none. My view is we should have 2 in the North Island, 1 in the South. We should even probably start to looking at remediating landfills. We should start lifting the levies even higher. If they were to say to me, I mean, if you look at the whole theory around waste, the levy to create diversion from landfills, they're now changing that terminology from what I believe, because waste to energy is a threat to that, because we're 100% diversion from landfill, with the exception of what we're going to sort out, right? So they definitely don't want to be working with us, because we're going to divert from landfill and create hurt for them. So they're in a bit of a quandary. How do we fix this? In my view, they're not sure. I believe New Zealand does want energy for waste, but they want a full toolbox. They still want to recycle. And I think that's the path forward.